Now we are going to begin this panel discussion, and this panel discussion is on the research problems and academic curriculum on science and Jain philosophy. To my mind, this is very important panel discussion, the second one that we have organized. And this panel discussion hopes to identify some of the research problems that we will undertake within BM International Research Center. In this panel discussion will be chaired by Professor Kachara. He is already on the seat here on the dais. May I request now Dr. Narendra Bhandari to come to the dais. May I invite now Professor A.D. Samant, the Pro-Vice Chancellor, former Pro-Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University. Professor A.D. Samant. Professor P. Sriram Murthy. Professor P. Sriram Murthy, please come to the dais. Professor Parthasarthi from Indian Institute of Technology. He has some problem in the family. He has gone to hospital and he requested whether he can come by this time. Maybe he will join us a little later. Mr. Vidyadhar Danavade. Dr. Samani Agam Pragyaji, please come. Okay, we will begin this session. As I mentioned to you that Professor N.L. Kachara, former principal of Motilal Nehru Engineering College, which is now called MNIT, a deemed university, was the principal of this college. And he has experience in research and teaching for over 35 years, more than 70 published research papers in reputed journals, and has written 11 books or edited them. He is the recipient of 2 awards and is currently advisor to BMIRC JVBI London. Apart from this, Professor Kachara has been very active in formulating the themes for this conference. I am personally aware of the active involvement that he had shown. Many times we met in the advisory committee, in the expert committee, in many ways, and very actively he has contributed to this whole program. So this conception of panel discussion is your involvement now. The modus operandi will be that each of the discussant will give his views for, let's say, less than 10 minutes. And then there should be active involvement of discussion from the floor. So this panel discussion is aimed to involve the audience in the auditorium here. Many of you cannot be accommodated on the dais, but we have all respect for you. You all deserve to be here. Therefore, because of the limitation of space and time, we have selected few our senior people and learned people here. We do expect your very active involvement in the discussion that follows. Okay, Professor Sri Murthy is an advisor in Center for Consciousness Studies and director in Yoga Center. He is also the member of Linguistic Society of India and has been on the advisory board of member for Sanskrit, Central Sanskrit Academy. We welcome Professor Ramurthy here on the dais. Please give a hand. Professor A.D. Samant is here on the stage. He is a former Vice Chancellor of University of Rajasthan and former Pro-Vice Chancellor of Mumbai University. Has also served as Joint Director, Higher Education, Maharashtra. Also developed a school of research in inorganic chemistry. He is actively engaged in transfer of technology for clean environment and rural development. He is heading a number of organizations and notably as President of Society of Clean Environment, and is also a trustee of Waste to Energy Research Council, India chapter. We welcome Professor A.D. Samant on the dais here. Please give a hand. Professor Parsarthi will join us a few moments later, perhaps. Let's just wait a few minutes. Professor Kachara would like to say something in the meantime, maybe as a background or information, how you'd like to go about. There are some papers. We have prepared a background paper that will be distributed to you by volunteers. That is a guideline how we want to go about in this panel discussion. So that paper is there. In a few minutes, this will be in your hand. I invite Professor Kachara now to give background of this panel discussion and how we would like to go about it as chairman. Let's give a hand to Professor Kachara, please.
Jai Jainendra. Professor Mishra has given some introduction of this particular panel session. When we were planning for this conference, we had some specific things in mind. Besides the technical sessions, where the scholars are presenting their papers, we wanted to have panel sessions where, besides presentation of views by panelists, we have discussions from the audience to have their views and suggestions, which finally would go a long way for preparing our plans at BMSIC. We had one panel discussion yesterday, particularly on education. And today, we are having the panel discussion on research problems and academic curriculum in science and Jain philosophy. This is now recognized as the crucial and important need of the time. Why research is important must be well realized. Jain philosophy originates in the teachings of Bhagavan Mahavira, who was the greatest scientist on earth. He had perfect knowledge of both the living and the non-living world and had experienced and knew the absolute truth. All his arguments were logical and scientific and true for all ages. Knowledge has two parts, the absolute and the empirical. The absolute form of knowledge is time invariant, but the empirical form is changeable with time. And this is where research is needed. India is a land of philosophy, and as other philosophies developed, there was a need to present Jain philosophy in a form to satisfy the changed requirements. And in this effort, our acharyas developed knowledge of logic, mathematics, and many other topics. In the ancient times, science was a part of philosophy, and so the acharyas were not only philosophers but were also scientists. Jain acharyas developed the philosophy to compete with other philosophies as well as to support the principles propounded by Mahavira. A new branch of knowledge in the form of modern science has developed in the last 3-4 centuries. This knowledge, mainly related to material order of existence, is explaining not only the processes occurring in nature, but is also modifying the way we think and way we live. Science has changed our perspective of the world and is forcing the traditional philosophies to rethink about their tenets. Philosophies based on unfound logic are finding it hard to challenge science, but Jain philosophy based on scientific approach is an exception. Its principles are based on absolute truth and can stand the challenges of all kinds. This has been recognized by many scholars, both Eastern and Western, and it has been said that more the science is developed, more the Jain ideas shall be appreciated. The subject of knowledge is not confined to any particular group of people, although in ancient times it was limited to the elite group of philosophical and religious leaders. Development of science has changed this scenario. Knowledge generation has now become and crossed the boundaries and has become the activity of a common people. Today, thousands and thousands of people are studying science and other disciplines of knowledge and pursuing the frontiers of knowledge to higher and higher limits. So the development of Jain philosophical ideas remain no more the responsibility of the acharyas alone, but the common individuals have also to participate in this endeavor. It is heartening to find this awareness has found place in Jain community, and many institutions and organizations have come up in the study and assimilation of Jain knowledge. But research in Jain philosophy, particularly scientific research, has yet to find its due place. Jain community today is on the forefront of anthropologic activities. It is contributing substantially to social welfare activities in the health sector, disaster management, and animal welfare. But a large part of funds are directed towards building temples, buildings, and monuments. Jain community, primarily focusing on business, is looking for immediate gains and therefore is neglecting religious education and research activities. Even in the established Jain institutions, not many students from Jain community are taking admissions. This is not a happy situation. Education research has got a long-term effects on our lives and shapes the future and needs our proper attention. We cannot expect the future to be bright without religious education and research. Jain Vishwa Bharati Institute, Ladno, has taken the initiative to take up research in the areas of science and Jain philosophy. It has established Bhagwan Mahavir International Research Center for undertaking research in modern perspective. One of its division on scientific research in Jain philosophy has done a groundbreaking work in preparing a monograph on scientific perspectives of Jainism, which brings out the state-of-the-art position on many areas of scientific study like consciousness, karma theory, logic, anekantvad, cosmology, epistemology, ecology and environment, meditation and health, psychology, mathematics, etc. This initiative is expected to build ground for research in science and Jain philosophy. Some more literature is also available now on scientific aspects of Jain philosophy due to efforts of acharyas like Mahapragya ji, Nandi Ghosh Vijay Suri ji, Kanak Nandi ji, Muni Mahendra Kumar ji, and some other Jain scholars. There are these two books authored by me, they are also available in the market, titled Scientific Explorations of Jain Doctrines, and I believe that this builds a primary background for scientific research. Research needs two main ingredients, manpower and funds, besides other infrastructural facilities. This should be well recognized by the Jain community and they should come forward to invest in research activity. Manpower in scientific research in Jain philosophy is another major problem. The traditional Jain scholars are not familiar with science and the scientists generally have no background of Jain philosophy. The best way to overcome this problem is to educate the scientists by teaching them the basic principles of Jain philosophy and have interaction between Jain scholars and scientists for mutual exchange of ideas and exploring possibilities of scientific research in Jainism. This needs development of curriculum both for the scientists and Jain scholars to bridge the gap of knowledge and paving the way for fruitful research. Interaction between science and Jain philosophy holds a great promise for the mankind. There is much to exchange between the two streams of knowledge. It is found that the ideas expressed in Jain philosophy are much more comprehensive and refer to much wider cross-section of knowledge as compared to modern science in many respects. So a comparative study can lead to developing a wider perspective of reality on one hand and also help development of science on the other. With this particular background, we propose to discuss certain basic issues in this panel discussion, which we have identified 4 particular areas to be discussed here. The first one, to facilitate the scientists to study the basic principles of Jainism and their scientific significance. In this particular area, we can talk of short-term courses, online lectures, and courses for students, working people, and retired personnel. The second area which we have identified is to develop PG courses in Jain philosophy and science together with academic curriculum for the same. And because we know that not many students are coming forward to take admissions, we have to have a provision for scholarship for such students who are willing to study. Then the third area is the identification of areas of scientific research in Jain philosophy. One of the source book for this one is the monograph which I mentioned to you, and all of you who are attending this conference must have got many ideas here itself that what are the possible areas of research in Jain philosophy and science. Then the fourth area which I identified is the developing online courses, because this is now the best way to impart education. Developing online courses for the benefit of Indian and international students interested in the basic principles of Jainism and their scientific interpretation. And in order that we can achieve this objective, we need experts and we need teachers for developing courses, we need technical support and facilities. So all these areas, issues now will be open for discussion, and I would like to have your suggestions and views as to how to go about it. This is a very important area, and whatever views and suggestions which we get from you will go a long way in formulating the policy for BMSs. But before we do that, we have distinguished panelists here who are present and who are going to present their views on this particular panel subject. We have three panelists at the moment. May I request the panel members to take limited time, say about 15 minutes, if possible. And Sumni Agam Pragyaji had agreed to take only 5 to 7 minutes because he wanted to give his basic ideas. So I request all the panel members to take minimum possible time so that we have enough time for discussions later. And then I will be circulating a pro forma to all of you for your acceptance to associate with this particular activity, because this is a very important activity, and those of you who are willing to contribute in any manner which you can, probably please sign the acceptance form so that we have a data bank with us and we can approach you at the proper time. Now invite Professor A.D. Samant, who is a well-known educationist, and we are very fortunate to have him here.
Mr. Chairman, the distinguished dais, dignitaries of the dais, all delegates. The task given to this panel, I think, is the most difficult, where the universities often fail to give good syllabi for a good course. I must appreciate that the initiative taken at this conference to come to the issue of how to make a good curricula and research and Jain philosophy to be linked together, which is the most difficult aspect, I feel. Science and spiritualism, then coming to the practical aspects, instrumentations, advanced instrumentation, sophistications, and cluster of all sciences together and a philosophy. I think the task is very difficult to make it, but with our experiences of practicing science, I shall be speaking in a very short time, as it is a limited time given to us. First of all, that why do we need to have this kind of curriculum when we are preaching and practicing, reading and studying the Jainism and the Jain philosophy? Many issues have been discussed since yesterday and today. I could attend some of the lectures yesterday, and from those, the basic principles